So I got a question for all of you. When's the last time you were really excited about something? For me, it was just last week. I was in the market for a new leaf blower. My current one seems to be coming to an end, and I've had it for quite a few years, and it's one of those corded ones that you have to plug in, and at times it can be a little inconvenient because you're limited by the length of the extension cord. So I was really excited when I found one that was well-rated cordless and had a long battery life. I got even more excited when I found out that I could buy an extension for it that allows it to blow the leaves out of my gutters without me having to get on top of a ladder. Super excited, but in an instant, that excitement turned into something else when I came to the realization that, man, I just turned into my dad. I'm not sure how many of you have ever come to a realization like that you are turning into one of your parents. There was research done lately that showed that that's not a very uncommon experience. A poll of 2,000 adults found that half believe that they are morphing into their own mom or dad, which happens on average at the age of 32. And 84% of them believe that it began when they had kids of their own and they began to notice that much of their behavior, especially parenting behavior, started to mirror that of their own parents. And the research also revealed the top 20 signs that made the participants believe that they are beginning to turn into one of their parents, and here they are. You dress for comfort, not fashion. You start to realize that most of the time, your parents were right all along. Here's one that I think will resonate with a lot of us. You think that all modern music is terrible. Falling asleep on the sofa. You use the same phrases like, "You're not going out like that." You save old boxes, tins, and bags, just in case. You find yourself telling your kids off in the same way. You rely on your kids for tech support. You get obsessed with weather reports. You're constantly nagging. When you get your first gray hairs, you pick the same side of the arguments that they used to. You get past the age that they were when they had you. You find yourself telling the same jokes again and again. You tell your kids off by using their full name. I know Nathan loves it when I say Nathan Ernest Singh, because he knows that maybe I'm upset. You regularly use the phrase, "Go ask your mom," or "Go ask your dad." This was a weird one, but this is based off of research. When you leave the bathroom in the morning, you realize it now has a smell you recognize from your own childhood. I don't know what that's about, but that was there. Your kids mock your fashion sense. You had the same driving habits. And lastly, you look in the mirror one day and you realize you look like them. It sounds like some of us here at least can resonate with at least some from that list. Because for most of us, the most influential people in our lives are our parents. Another study came out this month that looked at data from 10,000 12 and 13-year-olds, measuring their screen use habits like their texting and social media, video chatting, watching videos, and just browsing the internet. And we know that that's a huge issue for our young people. Well, guess what one of the biggest predictors was when it came to how much time kids spend on their screens? You might have guessed it. How much they see their parents on their screens when they're around them. And this makes sense because kids tend to be sponges, observing behavior and mimicking it. According to psychologist Carl Picard, children observe their parent more closely, appraise their parents more carefully, and know parents better than the parents do the child. And he says a lot of that's because of the power differential. As those with less power, the children tend to scrutinize their parents in greater detail to get whatever understanding they can in order to navigate that relationship. And he goes on to say that parents vastly underestimate how closely they are observed and evaluated by their child. But as many of you know, as children grow older, the way the child looks at their parent begins to change. We saw that with the Lenhart girls a little bit during the children's sermon. In the beginning stages, up until about age 9 or so, the child admires or even worships their parents and imitates wherever possible. The child wants to be like their mom or dad and wants to be liked by their mom and dad. But then comes adolescence. And as some of you, or most of you may have experienced, parents get kicked off that pedestal. In childhood, the parents can do no wrong, but come adolescence, it seems like the parents can do no right. And it's not that the parents have necessarily changed, but to feel like they are growing up, the young person needs to reject some of the old lifestyle that branded them as a child, to give them room to grow and to become more independent. And you'll find that they'll become more argumentative and critical of you. But in their early to mid-20s, when adolescence ends and young adulthood begins, something begins to change. The young adult begins to question, why did I turn out the way I am? And in answering that question, the young person looks back over personal history and begins to identify significant events and people who have shaped their development. And it's during that time that many young people come to acknowledge the significant influence their parents had on them, both good and bad. Some can look back with fond memories and others with hurtful ones. For most, it's more of a mix. But regardless, the young adult realizes how influential their parents were in shaping who they have become. And it doesn't take a deep understanding of psychology to understand that the people around us, especially those who we look up to, shape us into who we are. In John chapter 15, Jesus alludes to this understanding that we are shaped by the people we are connected to. And he says this, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that bears fruit he prunes, so that it will even be more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can't do anything. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. As we know, Jesus used many parables and illustrations to illustrate spiritual truths. And in this illustration, he uses a vine, most likely a grapevine. Now, a grapevine, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a shrub that produces long vines, each of which can produce clusters of grapes. Now, left to themselves, grapevines will mainly produce vines and leaves with very few grapes. But with careful pruning, the skilled gardener can coax them into producing large clusters of plump grapes. And with careful attention, they will produce an abundant harvest. Jesus identifies himself as the true vine, the central stalk rooted in the ground that provides support and nourishment to the branches that are attached to it. And he identifies God as the gardener, who prunes those who are bearing fruit so that they can be more fruitful. And he repeatedly refers to the need for the branches to remain connected to the vine. It's only when the branch remains connected that it can produce fruit. But one of the interesting things you may have just learned is that if left unpruned, the vine will expend all of its energy on just producing more vine without really producing much fruit, because most of the fruit grows a couple of feet from where the main stalk is. It's almost as if the vine is left to itself. It will continue to grow directionless and without fruit. I think maybe some of us know what that feels like. Expending energy on just producing more vine, but not seeing any fruit. Striving for more and working for more, but feeling as if things just aren't happening in your life. But the truth is that even when we are grown and mature, we are still influenced by our environment, by marketing, by people's opinions, maybe by trying to keep up with the people around us. Or maybe it's something a little deeper. An unsatisfied craving for approval, recognition, or love that was never met for us when we were younger. And all of these things influence us and pull us in different directions. This passage reminds us that in order for us to be who we are meant to be, we need to remain connected to Jesus, who gives us a vision of how we are called to live. Because the truth is that regardless of how old we are or young we are never done growing mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. God wants to continue to prune us so that we could bear fruit and live the lives that we were created to live, which is only possible if we remain connected to God, who, like a good parent, has modeled what a fruitful life looks like in Jesus and seeks to shape and mold us so that we could bear fruit.